Wanda Weir, thank you for joining me today on Brite Cast. I've realized we have been friends for 20 years, I think officially this year.
20 years?
20 years.
We were babies.
Met in 2005, I believe.
Wow.
Yeah.
4 kids, marriage. Oh my gosh.
Living the life and all that stuff.
Oh my gosh. Weren't we?
Let's start out with just telling a little bit about you and why you're here, other than being, a great friend. So we'll go from there.
Okay. So I'm Wanda. Let's see. About myself. My goodness. I think I'm someone who just wears multiple hats on a given day. I have 2 little ones.
Did you change that one?
I didn't.
Today?
This is one of my signature hats. Okay. Any given day, you can find me either being a homeschool mom. I'm a business consultant, a dance business consultant. Mm-hmm. I have my own dance choreography consulting business. My 2 girls are in the industry, and yeah, I mean, is that enough? And then just being a wife and a human being in general. So I mean, every day is different. Yeah. I am dipping in some parts of different types of my life and just trying to make it all fit on one plate.
Yeah. A very large plate.
Yes, a very large plate.
So let's start off with the managing stuff for your daughters. So how did you get into that? Or is it just like a natural thing and we'll just keep going?
Yeah, well, I didn't really set out to really be their manager. As when you have little girls, I thought, okay, I'm going to put them into dance, as every mom of girls think. And so I did that, and they were having a great time in dance. And one of my friends said, have you ever thought of, putting them into acting and stuff? And I was like, well, I don't know, not really. I started at 8 or 9 kind of in the acting industry, getting into print and commercial and things. Yeah. And at the time, they were 3 and 4. And I said, okay, I'm not sure, but let's see. Let's start small. And one of my friends who actually lives out in LA, and he's really big in the industry, he said, I think you should just go for it.
Yeah.
And I said, what does go for it mean? I said, can I just dabble in it? And he's like, well, there's no such thing as dabbling either. Yeah. You're going to go for it or not. So I sent out their pictures to a couple of different local, managers, and they were picked up by one. And I think naturally, when you're a parent and you have kids in the industry, you're going to have to do some management. But I didn't know everything that it would entail. I knew I was going to be driving them there, but soon driving them, and then it's how often do they need photography? How often do they need new clothes for set? The auditions, you don't have a week to prepare. The auditions come in at 5 p.m. and you have to have them ready by 9 a.m. the next morning. Yeah. So a lot of it just came naturally, kind of figuring out what I was going to need to do. And then as they've grown and gotten pretty successful in the industry, being the type of person that I am and being a mom who wants to be involved and my hands on what they're doing, it kind of has morphed into more of a kind of sometimes feels like a full-time job of keeping all of their projects. Yeah, together.
You're a project manager.
Yes.
Not just a manager.
I am a project manager. Yes, that's a good way.
A little bit closer up?
Yes, that's a good way to say. I am managing projects.
Well, you've always been organized.
I have, yes. Before I had the kids, I was dancing for, the NFL and the NBA, and then I was a director for the NBA, and I think that's really where I got into, as you call it, project management or people management. Yeah. Managing different personalities, different women through dance and everything like that. So I think it naturally helped me have some kind of, acumen for what it was going to look like managing kids in the industry.
Right. And so another thing you don't want to do, right, is force your kids to do it. So was there a certain point that you they actually, they're asking you, can we audition? Can we do stuff?
Correct. And this is what I like to tell parents too, when your kids are little, it's a lot driven by the parent. There's a cuteness factor to, oh my goodness, they booked for this and I get to see them in a catalog. And then you get to share it with your friends and the kids are so cute. But when
I'm famous because my kid is
famous.
Yes,
you know what I mean? And so it's kind of like you have to keep yourself in check and realize that this is also your kid's life.
Right.
And it wasn't until they started talking, I would say probably 5 or 6, when they're getting scripts that actually have copy. Mm-hmm. Because before that, it's click, your kid's cute, let's book them. Yeah. And then the scripts come. And so can your child read? Can they look at something and memorize it? That's something I didn't know they'd be able to do so well. Right. That's kind of a gift that they had. They would look at it and be like, okay, I'm ready to do it. And so you as a parent are...
It would take me forever.
Oh, it would take me, days to get something, and they just look at it. And so they would get excited. There is a little bit of... When they come in, like I said, there's no kind of warning. Sometimes they'll be playing and I'm like, okay, guys, we got to get this audition in, so there's a little bit, you get ice cream after it, kind of incentivize it. Right. But now they're they're 11 and 12, almost 11 and 12. And now it's kind of like they know it's a job. So, and they enjoy it.
Right.
There is that satisfaction of being able to look at yourself, submit something and say, wow, I did a really great job, regardless of whether you booked the job or not. So I would say it morphed quickly into something they enjoyed, probably around 5, 6, 7.
Okay.
Before then, they don't really know what's going on.
Right.
You know what I mean?
If you're just playing with blocks or something in a commercial,
you don't know. You don't
even
know
you're on set, basically.
You don't, exactly. You know there's snacks and you're going to get the snacks. And yes, exactly.
You could have gotten me with ice cream anytime when I was that age.
Yes, it gets adults too. We like the snacks.
So what are how is it balancing the mom life with being the manager and all the other stuff that you're doing?
Yeah. I think the word balance is kind of there's really no such thing as I think coming into even being a parent and a working parent, you think there is until you become one. And you're like, most of the days I feel like I'm looking at a plate and something's going to get more of the time.
Right.
Okay. So when you have kids in the industry, like for instance, today, when I have to get one to a theater set, that is going to take a bigger chunk of the time because that's a professional gig.
Right.
So that means in the morning, I might not be able to get some of my consulting things done because my focus needs to be on her getting there on time because that's a paid job.
Yeah.
So then my needs kind of get less of the pie for the day. So I always tell people when they ask me, how do you balance it all? You don't.
Just keep going.
You keep going, and every day is different. Some days, myself, as far as my self-care, it may be 5%. Other days I'm doing great. It might be 90 because someone else has them, and I'm able to get my workout done in the morning, and I'm able to drink hot coffee. But majority of the time, it is looking at the plate and figuring out what needs the biggest percentage today.
Yeah.
And that's a skill set that you're always learning. But I think the quicker you realize it's not about a balancing act, the quicker you realize that it's attainable.
Okay.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think if you're always thinking, oh, my life is going to feel in tune and balanced and I'm going to wake up and realize, oh my gosh, I have everything in control, you're going to be very frustrated.
Just being comfortable in the chaos a little bit.
Oh, yes, it's very chaotic.
But the more you do it, the more reps you get, the more it's all right, well, we're just going to do this.
You learn to live in the chaos and you learn, who your tribe is and people who you can text and be like, this is crazy, but I'm doing it. And they're like, yep, it's crazy, but you got it. You learn who your circle is. And some people will still look at you and be like, I could never do that. And you're like, you're right. It takes a different skill set and a different determination, and you need everybody to be all in. Your kids need to be all in.
Husband needs to be
all in. Some days I remind him, hey, you're all in. But yeah, every giving day is something different.
And you guys have done several commercials with the whole family, right?
Yeah, that's an interesting.
Was that, Busch Gardens?
We've done a lot of stuff, and interesting about that is talking about being all in. My husband's role in the beginning was just drive.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. And so then he started sitting in the lobby, and this is how we got our first Amtrak campaign. Was he was sitting in the lobby. I was actually going in with another male actor who was going to be playing the dad. I know, right? So it was another male actor and the kids. And so we came out. I thought we did great. And the casting director came out of the room. I started to get really nervous because that doesn't normally happen. Beelined for my husband and said, "Are you the dad?" And he's like, "Yeah." And it's like, "Hey, just would you mind coming in and auditioning?" And he's like, "Oh, no. I'm just here." And they're like, just
I'm
come
a cop.
on. Yeah, right. Exactly. I'm just the driver. And he's like, and they're like, you know what? Just humor us. Just come in. And we got it all together. It was our first national campaign because they liked the natural chemistry that was there from Real Families. Right. So, I mean, we've done Disney, we've done Legoland. It's
Disney.
Yeah, we did Disney, and it's one of those things like we could have never planned it, but it's kind of in this industry. I always say you have to be ready, and you just have to be open to what could possibly be.
Yeah. And
say yes. You know what I mean? And just be ready to say yes.
So do you both have agents as well? The whole family
does? So the girls have agents in New York, California, and Philly.
Ooh.
We, the family, are only repped all together in California, which is unique, right?
Okay.
So
get a free flight.
I know, right? And then I myself act as the manager a lot for our family campaigns because we are not represented as a family, except in California. So if anything comes locally, a lot of times it's me acting as a manager for all of us.
So, I mean, how difficult has it been starting a career in the DC area as opposed to being in New York or LA?
It's challenging.
Yeah.
When the girls just got started before COVID, since COVID, a lot is virtual. But before COVID, everything was in person.
Yeah.
So if there was an audition in New York, it looked like us getting up at 2:30 in the morning. The kids were in pajamas. We'd set them up in the back. They're sleeping still. We'd wake them up when we'd get there. I'd have like their hair stuff, their clothes stuff all ready to go. We did a lot of changing in parking garages and get them to their audition, 5, 10 minutes, get right back in the car 4 or 5 hours later and come home. Oof. And it was a lot of 95 trips back and forth, back and forth. And I say, if you can survive that, then you have pretty good endurance for the industry, because a lot of people during that sprint of like going and expecting that you're going to get cast for everything and you don't, a lot of people tire out. Right. This is about the long haul. It's a marathon. It's not a sprint. And so you have to decide at that point, we're going to have to put in a lot of mileage in the front end to get a return on our investment. And plus, you'll know right then and there if the kids like it.
Right. Because this is what it takes. If we live here, that's what it's going to take.
Absolutely. Yeah. And it takes all of that, hey, getting up at dark 30. Like, are your kids, do they really want to do that? Right. And after a time, it wasn't a chore for the kids. They looked forward to it. They looked forward to like getting their back seats set up. They looked forward to the road trips. Like, they weren't complaining. And
if it was in the 80s, you don't have anything. You got to read a comic book or something. What are you going to do?
We survived though, right? We survived.
I'm still here. Yeah, barely.
But one thing is, people say, don't the kids complain? Like maybe like out of all the years we've been doing this, maybe there's been 1 or 2 times where they've been like, I don't want to do it. The majority of it, they're not complaining. And that's when you have kids who want to do it.
Yeah.
Because if not, it's terrible.
So how many times going back and forth until something was booked?
Let me think here.
Roughly. Exactly 27.
I know, right? I would say the family and we booked our first like Blues Clues campaign, I think maybe after like 3 or 4 times up there.
Oh, that's unnormal.
It's not normal. Yeah. And I will tell you that a lot of success that our family has had is atypical, because a lot of people will say like, how has your family been like cast in all these things? And I just said, like, our family is made up. We have so many different types of personality. You know us. Yeah. And I think on set, it's very dynamic. And we also are multicultural. You put one of my children with one set of family, she looks like them. You put them with us, they look like us. You put them with another family. Yeah. So we are a melting pot of just different looks that brands like. Okay. And I say this humbly, but the kids are talented. They are, at this point, they have proven that they are good at what they do. They're great on set. So typically it is not that short of amount of time for you to go up there and get booked.
And that's the advice you'd have to give to somebody's like, it could be 100 auditions. It could be never.
Yes.
How bad do you want it?
Absolutely. Absolutely. There are adult actors. When Mila, my daughter, was on Broadway 2 summers ago, she was making her Broadway debut at 8. There were adult actors at 40 making their Broadway debut. So you have to.
That's how bad they want it.
That's it. Do you know what I mean? And so when you look at that, you have to want it bad, and you have to be like hungry for it. You have to keep going. You can't get your feelings hurt. It's not personal. Right. You either have what they're looking for or you don't. Right. And you just keep showing up. And I always tell my kids, if it's meant for you to get, you will get it.
Well, they've had enough like small wins that it's like, okay, well, if I don't make this one, then it wasn't meant to be.
Yes.
But I can only imagine the people that are going through it that have been doing it for 20 years and like never getting any of the roles. Like,
yes,
I would maybe quit.
And you know what?
Being honest, but good for them.
Absolutely. And a lot of people do. I say it, this industry is about talent, yes, but it's also about look. And it's a lot about who you know. Yeah. And at this stage of when you have little people, it's resources.
Right.
Do you know, it's time. Do you have, I always call it a default parent, which is me. Mm-hmm. Do you have someone who is going to scale back their life to focus on getting the kids where they need to be?
Right.
Because my business, yes, I have my business Premier Dance, but that took a little bit of a backseat, actually a major backseat, as soon as Mila went to Broadway. Right. Because I had to say, okay, well, I can't run at full speed. the same time my kids are running at full speed.
Right.
And if I know that my husband is the one with the insurance and the one with the full-time job, we need to keep him running.
Yeah.
So I need to jog so that my kids can sprint, you know. And it's a moment in time. They're going to be one day in college or traveling the world or up and about. And if I want to reinvent myself at that time, you know,
I mean, that's only not even 10 years away.
Oh, don't say that. I know it's not.
I mean, it's crazy how much time has flown. But, you know,
Yes.
honestly, at the point, you're still being their lives, of course. But
Absolutely.
at 18, they could live somewhere and you can
Yes.
still manage them. But
Sure.
you don't need
It's
to
not a
drive them
full-time-
places and
Absolutely.
do all the other stuff that you can get back
Absolutely.
to, you know,
Yep.
being a public speaker, which we'll talk about
Yes.
later on.
Yes.
So do they have any... either Adriana or Mila have any aspirations of what they want, like where they see themselves? Like, I was going to be a fireman when I was a kid,
Right.
an astronaut, and then I was going to, be a musician, which I still kind of
Which you did, and you are, yes.
But do they see a path like directly for what they want to do?
They both want to do what they're doing now, which I think is kind of wild. And I tell them that all the time. We have heart to hearts. I said, do you know how lucky you are to have a dream as a kid and be doing it?
Yeah.
Do you know? I mean,
Most people in their 40s still don't know what they're doing.
that's what I'm saying. You know, Mila wants to go abroad. I mean, she also wants to celebrate her 13th birthday in Paris. So this is where do you know what I mean? But she's a vision caster. She saw herself on Broadway before it happened. So I believe her. When she says she's going to get something done, she will make a way to get there. Adriana wants to be doing exactly what she's doing. She wants to do musical theater. She wants to get on Broadway. But I think she also has the education bug. She wants to teach, and, I'm not sure where she got that from, but she wants to teach, but they want to do what they're doing now.
Right.
And I always tell them, if next year you come to me and decide, hey, I think I want to pivot and do this, I'm team whatever you want to do.
Right.
I want you to enjoy your life. You have one childhood, and I want you to be able to explore a lot of different things. And sometimes I'll try and pull them back. Hey, are you sure you want to do this show? Because that means you can't, maybe do this summer camp, or don't you want to try basketball? Or don't you? And they're like, Mom, no, I want to do exactly what I'm doing now. And I'm like, okay, I'm just checking.
It's good to have that like temperature checked, and
Yes.
just to make sure, like, so they don't have any regrets later down the road, or maybe they're not telling you if you're forcing them,
Yes.
but just to make sure that is not the case.
Absolutely.
And it's good to have that,
Yep.
So what do you have for advice for parents that are like starting to get into it outside of like the travel part of it? What else would they expect? I mean, I know you have maybe a whole consulting thing that we'll talk about,
Yes.
but like what's like immediate thing for their expectations?
The first thing I would ask a parent is, do you want it, or does your child want it? That's a very first thing.
Right.
Then I would say, how willing are you to put your wants and your needs on the back burner for your child? I mean, real back burner.
Right.
Because there's some days legit, I am Mila's Uber driver. Like this morning, she's giving me her order of what she wants for lunch. I handed her to a handler. I pick her up from 1 to 2. I feed her, and then I drop her back off. I'm like, wait, who's in charge of who here? Do you know what I mean? So I think it's a conversation a serious conversation of like, this can't be about your ego.
Right.
It can't be about you're going to feel some kind of way when your child books something, and that's going to help you achieve something that you haven't achieved in your life. I tell people all the time, I'm not living vicariously through my children. I had my performance life. I've been there. I've done it. So it's, do you have the time, and are you willing to drop everything? And I mean drop everything for your child. When the agents call you, there's no.
Right.
And I'm serious. There's no like, they will hold on and be like, okay, so we need her at 5 a.m. in Brooklyn tomorrow. Okay, I'll send you the details. The whole time you're like, I have 8 things scheduled tomorrow.
Right.
So I'm going to call these 8 people and move this doctor's appointment, ask this friend to pick up this person. And you just do it without thinking. And if you aren't willing to do that, I will say, wait until you are.
Yeah. I think a lot of people, their kids might not have the it factor like we talked about earlier, but it is their washed up dreams, and they see something in the kid and they start to push towards that, but they will not be where they're giving it all up, and they might take it personally if they're not getting, the kids aren't getting booked for stuff, and the kid might not even like it.
Exactly.
You
And
know?
I think I try to do this on my social media platforms of sharing the behind the scenes because highlight reels on social media make everything look glamorous. And my regret about Broadway is I didn't have a GoPro on me because when Mila got the contract for Broadway, I had 2 weeks. I had nowhere to live, but my answer was yes.
Yeah.
And so I got there without a place. We stayed at a hotel for a while. I'm calling Airbnbs. Then that Airbnb couldn't take us for a month. I'm moving us single-handedly out of that Airbnb into a Brooklyn place. Like, Mike, it was wild.
Wow.
It was absolutely wild. And I think people think it's a lot more glamorous in Hollywood than it is, but it's mundane work.
Yeah.
It's that 30-second commercial took 2 days to film. And talking back to Adriana's first commercial, she was 5. And in the scene, she has to go up the staircase. She had to do it 25 times.
Oh, man.
And
leg workout.
Yeah. And the director, this is when you say, how do you know if your kid has it? The director came to me, and it's actually a director she's worked with 4 other times since then. That's a whole nother story because he kept calling her back. Mm-hmm. And he came to me and he said, if she really wants to do it, she has it. Yeah. She said most 5-year-olds would have complained, wouldn't have done it.
Say, okay, stairs again.
Yep. And she did it. And I was even like, oh, am I going to have to intervene? Am I going to have to say she needs a break? She managed her own little self. And I said, okay, so we may have stumbled into something that she enjoys. So,
right.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, that's great stuff. So, like, getting into the dance industry part of it.
Yeah.
So what are you still doing now? You're doing judging? Is it for high school or college?
Yeah, so I judge for all-star, high school, college, team. Different than studio. I know that's kind of like, it's all dance to most people, but I do a lot of things that are team focused. Okay. So I started dancing when I was 3. I grew up as a studio kid in the studio, living all day. Kind of parents would pick me up from school, drop me at the studio. I ate meals there. I did my homework there. They picked me up at 10 and I came home. Like
10?
Sometimes it was 10. Competition time. It's, I mean, you're there, you know. But I loved it. Mm-hmm. Like it felt like, saying it now, it felt like a lot, but I still had a lot of free time. Like, I don't feel like part of my childhood I missed out on anything. It was a well-balanced
that's your friend group
things.
Too.
It was my friend group. And my mom didn't know anything about dance. Mm-hmm. She just put me in it because I was a girl and I liked it and I was good at it, you know? So she didn't have any preconceived notions that I was going to be famous or expectations from me.
Right.
It made me happy, so it was an activity I did.
Right.
So now I do a lot of judging. I do consulting with studios, so sometimes that looks like helping with after-school programs. I help with high school teams, strength and conditioning. So I kind of set up my business like that because I have a lot of things that I can offer, and I didn't want to box myself in. Yeah. So teams will sometimes say, hey, I need you to look at my nationals routine and say, what is it lacking? Okay, that's a consulting package I can offer. Mm-hmm. Sometimes I'm in person and doing more hands-on training. Right. And other times I'm just helping businesses figure out how they can broaden the services that they offer. Okay. So
yeah. So that's Premier?
That's Premier.
Okay.
Yes.
When did you start that?
Goodness. So Premier opened its doors in 2008. So, and it's kind of gotten bigger and smaller as I've done other things in my life. You know, when I first opened it, I was working in pharmaceutical sales, which took a lot of my time. Right. And so this was kind of like a little side hustle that I had. Mm-hmm. And then I got into the NBA and the NFL, and that took up more of my time. And it wasn't until I got laid off from my job working in corporate America after a buyout, when I was ironically pregnant with my first daughter, that my husband looked at me and he said, well, maybe now is the time that you figure out how to make this more of your full-time.
That's the only reason we're here right now.
I mean,
because I lost my job.
Yeah.
And from COVID. So.
Yeah. And it's having the courage to kind of be like, well, wait, I'm going from this 6-figure great cush job of where I knew that money was going to come in at a certain time.
But it's soul sucking.
It was.
Yeah.
It was. Thank God that happened, because my life would have been completely different had I had that job, because the girls would have been in daycare. Mm-hmm. I would have been working 60, 70 hours a week. Yep. My life would have been
good money.
Sure, but I mean, money isn't everything.
They wouldn't be doing what they're doing now.
No way.
You wouldn't be able to.
I wouldn't be able to. And so once that happened and I kind of took my business full time, I started consulting and kind of helping people build their businesses. And I was doing a lot of private coaching and a lot of helping teams. And I was actually enjoying my life. I was actually enjoying what I was doing because it was giving back. It was taking all of the talents of people who poured into me and now being able to help the next generation become whatever they wanted to.
Right. And then once you have like that side hustle already going, it's like, well, now I can just go full force into that.
Yes.
Because I had already started more Brite at that time. And when I lost my job, I was like, well, I already had some clients. So I'm just like went all into it. I mean, it took a while to like, like real hustling to get where I'm at now. But I don't think I would have ever made the leap.
No.
To be honest. So God was just like,
yeah, that's how everything works in my life. It's a push. It's never a gentle push. It's like always like a big, like pull the rug from under me and be like, so now what?
Yeah.
You know?
Well, but I mean, and that would have been such a different life for you all. We wouldn't be talking about pharmaceutical sales.
No, we wouldn't have. We would not have. And
I'll hang out with you any day.
I mean, but that's not really, I mean, and the thing is, I was a salesperson. It's consulting. I was really good at it. But again, it was soul sucking. I was always chasing a number to make somebody else more money. And then the metrics kept changing. The more awards I won, then the higher my goal was every year. And I was just like, I know I'm good at what I'm doing, which is consulting and educating, but I always felt like I wanted to do more. I had a different purpose in my life that was not fulfilling,
So, and doing pharmaceutical sales too, like, you don't always know what you're selling.
No.
Like, whether it's a great product. You're just put to task to sell. Have you seen Dope Sick or any of those?
Oh, I saw Dope Sick. Thank God I was out of the industry when that happened because I'm like, some of that stuff
that's how they sell it to you. So, and then you just go sell, like, and it's not necessarily the salesperson's fault at that point. They're just not doing their job. But to have to do that, and especially with, like, not to get political, but big pharma is a problem.
And luckily I did not work for big pharma. I worked for smaller companies and the products that I sold I sold a lot of allergy medications, and I did hospice consulting, and then I did IV antibiotics. So I could sleep at night because at least I knew that the therapies that I were selling actually were helping. And I had a lot of direct to consumer interaction with the patients, which was very rewarding. But as an empathetic person, it weighed on me. Like I still remember some of the patients that I had, and like they're still in my mind because I remember the consulting process, and a lot of times through hospice and IV antibiotics, they don't survive. And so it was a point of, I think God intervened when he did, because I just don't know how I would have done that line of work and parented and had the brain width to be everything they needed for me. Do you know
how to be a good parent when your mind is obsessed, well, not obsessed, but like filled with all these other people, like compassionately.
Absolutely.
That's got to be. Well, thank God.
Yes.
For that.
At the time, I was bitter and I was angry and I was crying and I was like, "What am I going to do with my life? Who am I without that corporate job identity?" And so it was a lot of. I feel like God took me down and had me rebuild myself up with the right stuff that wasn't based on your worth being tied to a financial number. So that was a good thing that I went through, because now I never tie my worth to financial numbers, because money comes and money goes. Just when we get a great project, I'm like, oh, and who needs $5,000 headshots? And you know what I mean? It just like, it comes in, and if you're building your identity on that, you will never be happy. So I'm glad it happened, and I'm glad we went a different path. That's great.
So in the dance world, like how do you see that it's evolved over the past, 20 years since you've been doing it?
Oh, wow.
Well, more than 20 years, but we'll leave it at 20.
I think the biggest change is social media.
Oh, yeah.
And so growing up, you didn't know if you were good unless the person in the room with you was better. Okay.
Or the competition you go to.
Yes, or the competition, right? And at the time, like, I'm still friends with one of my great friends who went to my studio when we were 12 years old, and I thought she was amazing. And my first reaction was, I want to dance just like her. And the good thing is that she was saying that about me in a different form of dance. So instead of being competitors, we learned from each other. And now almost 30 years later, we're judging together. We share that story. It's great. Now kids are constantly in comparative mode.
Yeah.
They're on
everything, not just dance.
Everything. And so you can go on Instagram or TikTok and you could be feeling as a dancer, 11-year-old dancer, like, oh my gosh, I just got my double turn. You go on social media and there's some 11-year-old that just did 4 turns into an aerial, into a back handspring.
Oh, jeez.
So instead of sitting there feeling like, wow, it took me a year to get the double and I did great. I did daily lessons. I had this chart, I'm doing great. You immediately feel defeated. So as a parent now, what that's done is it is hyper focused parents on a win instead of what dance is supposed to be.
Yeah.
Dance is
expressive, creative, art.
All of those things that like you can't get in a classroom, you can get from arts and dance.
Yeah.
And because kids now are just always focused on, they come into class being like, well, I want to do this trick. And you're like, well, you can't.
For Instagram.
Yes. And then as the dance teacher, you're like, well, I need you to take more ballet classes because I need you to get the foundations. They don't care. They're like, I don't care. I want to know how to do, I'm just calling it aerial. That's a big thing now. Right. And I'm like, okay, but you can't even do the basic skills needed for ballet class. So let's maybe take one more ballet class. No. Then the parents in the office and telling you, I want my child to do this skill. So now it is you're looking at from a well-being of a child versus pleasing the customer, competing against social media.
Right.
And so it's bittersweet because I do like that kids can go on social media and see so many,
potentially.
Inspired, so many different types of dance that they weren't exposed to, because if you've only gone to your mom and pop studio at home and you didn't know all of these other types of dance, you're kind of hindered. And then you go into a college dance and you're like, wait a minute, I feel left behind. But too much of something and too much competition at an early age, what is that really doing to the young mind? So it's a challenge when you talk to parents because they seem to be really focused on the medals.
Oh.
And the placement. And my daughter got high, gold, platinum, plus elite at this competition. But when she went to this competition, she only get gold. I don't get it. And so it's like, well, different judges. And did you look at the comments that she's getting? What are the good things? Right. Have you looked at the videos? Is she growing? Well, it doesn't matter. She doesn't care about that. She just wants to get this medal placement because her friend got it. And like, that's,
jeez.
Do you know what I'm saying? But see, that's what we're focused on. Like those awards, which when I can tell you, if your child wants to be on Broadway or to make it as a professional dancer, no one cares about the gold, platinum plus, elite, whatever it is.
Do you know what like an all-inclusive resort? Gold, platinum. Plus.
Yes. And, you know, it's, can your child go into a room and light it up? Can your child, can they perform? Or are they just doing skills that they know will win because that particular competition always rewards that skill?
This might sound controversial, but do the parents want the medal to convince themselves that they're good parents?
I think the medals help the parents feel that what they're paying may be worth it. So as a consultant and as somebody who has done this for a long time, I will say a medal is not going to tell you if it's worth it.
Okay.
It's not.
Well, it should be the self-esteem of the kid.
And it should be, is your kid growing year after year?
Yeah.
Because...
do they love it?
Do they love it? Because even as a judge, I judge a lot. And I've been judging, like I just came back from Dance World where I've been there for 16 years. Wow. Not always the best teams win. Mm-hmm. I'm going to tell you, it's a human panel of people judging based on a score sheet at a certain time of the day, looking at the team at a snapshot of time. It's not always the best team that wins.
Right.
It could be the best music, the best costume,
the charisma,
the best, so many different things. So if you're not focused on the right things, we're just not focused on the right things. Mm-hmm. And so what happens is, because I used to coach college teams, by the time they get to me, they don't want to dance anymore.
Really?
No. Huh. Some of my best dancers, they'll make the team and say, I don't have the time for this. I just want to be a student.
Really?
And it's sad because dance should be a longevity sport. Like, I'm still dancing now and enjoying it. But because we're so focused on, there's 11-year-olds who take classes, I'm not kidding, 7 days a week.
Wow.
7 days a week.
And is that because of them or the parents? I mean, there's probably outliers on.
There's a couple
either
different
side.
things.
Yeah.
There are some extremely talented dancers. I mean, like 7-year-olds who are out dancing college kids.
Oh, wow.
But I always say, I personally did not peak until college. And I'm glad I didn't peak until college because
until my 30s.
I mean, I maybe haven't peaked yet, you know,
right.
But I'm glad I didn't because then I went to the pros and then I coached and then, do you know what I mean? I wasn't focused on, I have to be the best I can be at 10. But kids now feel like, oh my gosh, if I am not the best I am by 11 or 12, then I can just forget about it.
Right. That's not, I mean, very few people are virtuosos of anything.
Correct.
You know, so you kind of got to you may not love it that much then. Or you might fail in other things later on because you didn't continue to put in the time when you're not good at something.
That could be true.
You know?
And I don't know. I'm a parent. I'm going to throw us under the bus. A lot of this is parenting.
Okay.
A lot of it is parents don't want to listen to the experts. Parents don't want to listen to the studio owners that say, do you know why, I'm just throwing out random names, do you know why Sammy is good? Sammy is good because Sammy takes 5 ballet classes. Then Sammy takes acro. Then Sammy throws in the bells and whistle classes like hip hop and popping and the other things, but the foundation is there. Here's a parent. No, my child does not like ballet. They only want to take hip hop. They only want to take acro. And so that's what I'm doing. And if you don't do that for me, then I'm going to go to a studio down the road where they can do that. And then they'll complain. And then they'll complain to all their friends. And then you feel like I have to acquiesce because you want to keep the parents
disclaimer,
happy.
it's just the results are going to be lackluster because the foundation isn't there.
And then guess who they blame?
I'll take your money still.
Yes, but then guess who they blame?
Yeah.
It still comes back, then they blame the teacher or the studio. And it's almost like, you know, when you're thinking about the consulting and consulting to parents, and a lot of what my passion is our parents need to be better trained. And I really feel like I talk about social media and I know I'm very conservative in my views about that, but I feel like if we got our kids off of the phones and back into their crafts, then we would see kids who were really developing into the dancers they want to be because they would realize that age-appropriate skills and progressing is a progression. It is not an overnight thing like Instagram or TikTok will make you think nothing, but they think it is.
Right.
They think it is. And so
I thought I could write pop music, and then I tried doing it. And I was like, "Oh man, this is way harder."
It's way harder than you think.
It took me years to kind of get it down and stuff. So people just need to realize that you're not going to be an overnight success. It takes the 10,000 hours to eventually get to the point that people say it's an overnight
But
success.
who's really? So here's the tricky part on that. When you tell someone that, they don't want to hear that. It doesn't sell.
Yeah.
You know what sells is like, oh my gosh, if I get this turning apparatus on the floor in 2 weeks with this $1,000 piece of square, I can turn like so-and-so. But maybe
That's all you can do is turn though.
But they don't. But the thing is, it didn't take that child 2 weeks.
Right.
It didn't. But that sells.
Right.
You know?
So do you have one of those devices you're going to start selling?
No, I don't. Actually, we don't even have a turning disc. We don't have one of those. But
So how do you see like the dance culture changing? Is that mainly just that stuff through social media? Is there any pros to where you see it going?
I think there's a lot of buzz now for a shift needs to happen.
Okay.
Because what
would that shift be?
Hopefully finding a middle ground. As a judge who judges a lot of competitions, what we're seeing a lot, especially in the younger ages, is a lack of training. So they are just becoming trick masters. And by that, I mean they're just throwing acro skills in, but then they'll go and do a double turn and it's flexed feet, legs aren't straight. So I'm the judge who's constantly writing, make sure that your foundational skills are perfected before you throw in the magic. And
Is that a quote on your website?
well, it should be now.
should be
I've
now.
said it many times on my score sheets, but judges now are talking about it. And the more that judges say it, we're hoping to give validity to the studio owners who are saying it, but the parents don't want to hear it, and the parents are paying the bill. So you understand it's a tough spot to be a studio owner.
Right.
Because most of the studio owners that I know are seasoned. They've been doing it. They know what they're talking about, but then it's like this. They're saying this is what your child needs. The parent's like, well, this is what I want, and I'm paying for it. And then you have a studio down the street that will do whatever the parent wants.
Well, that's got to be tough, but it's the only righteous way to do it. To tell people straight up and not, I've had some clients that are kind of similar. We're like, well, this is what I want. I'm like, well, that's not what you should be doing.
Absolutely.
And I've turned some of them away because I'm like, you're going to be mad at me later. So I'd rather just go somewhere else. It's better for you.
Absolutely.
So is there enough volume of people that want to do dance so you can turn those parents away?
Yes and no.
Okay. Depending where you are, I imagine.
Depending. And I think the more that people amplify their voices on social media where the kids are and speaking to the fact that you need to be in ballet, that things take time. And now there have been a lot of Broadway voices and a lot of people who have made it that said, guess what? When you get into those professional auditions, no one's going to ask you about your trophies.
Right.
They're going to ask you, where did you do your training? They're going to see if you can pick up this combination. They're going to see if you're kind to people in the room. They're going to see if you can turn it on. What makes me watch you? And what's happening is that kids now are so in their phone that they don't know how to perform.
Oh, yeah.
Do you know that's a real thing?
Yeah.
And so that's why kids who happen to do theater and happen to do all of those things are excelling. So telling parents, hey, and dance, you may want to actually get into some theater, especially if you want to take this longevity, because a lot of that is, do you have the it factor? Can you walk into a room and light it up? I don't care if you can do a back handspring. That's not going to book you an audition.
Right.
A
lot of people can do that, but if they can't memorize a script, if they don't have charisma, then it's
can't make me watch you. Then I'm going to see 100 other people that someone will stop me dead in their tracks. And guess what? They might not even be as good as you, but they know who they are and they've trained for the longevity and not trained to win an award, which is a whole different type of training.
Right. So in your consulting business, what are the main services that you offer?
So before the kids got really busy, I actually worked a lot with parents when their kids were transitioning from high school to college and talking to them about what that training looked like, because a lot of those dancers hadn't taken POM before. They'd only done studio, which is lyrical, jazz, and ballet, and there's a different strength competency needed. So I talked to the parents, figure out, when are the auditions? Where are you auditioning for? And I'm like, okay, that team is focused on hip hop. That team is focused on POM. Maybe you can go to this studio and get your hip hop. I can help you with the POM, and you need help with your look. So maybe go to this person to help you with XYZ. So it was kind of telling the parents, you've got to frame, it's a whole different focus now that you're going into college.
Okay.
And then the meat and potatoes of what I do now is helping high school and college teams in strength and conditioning. So coaches are usually very busy dealing with game day, dealing with choreography, dealing with admin stuff. But when it comes to training their dancers for dance specific training, which is different than athletic training and different than going to a gym, that's where my services come in to kind of
What's different
partner with them. So a lot of what I do with my company is POM based. So my exercises are taking movements that you would actually do in the routine, putting it to circuits, putting it in an athletic intensity kind of circuit machine or whatever, and doing it over and over so that by the time you actually go to do your choreography or do your routine, you've already built up the muscle strength that you need using the motions that you're already going to do.
Right.
Coaches were finding that, hey, we're in the weight room, we're doing bicep curls, we're doing all these things, but I'm like, yeah, but that is not what
movement.
It's not functional. Yeah. So it was introducing them to specific warm-ups that they do, specific trainings that they do. And then the results started happening. They kept seeing, once they use
logical.
It's logical. It makes sense.
Yeah.
There are a lot of programs now that do it, which is amazing. Sometimes people are like, well, aren't you don't you get upset? I'm like, no, I love that. I love when you...
Well, you had an actual impact.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And there are a lot of companies now that offer it. I have not outsourced mine. So which makes it hard is I am the person who comes in and I set it up that way for a reason because you know me, I'm not just doing strength training. I'm going going in there, and then I'm doing motivation, and I'm doing different things that is based on what I can offer.
Right.
So I've purposely kept the business small because I want it to be niche.
Yeah.
Now thinking about how to expand that through some virtual services might be something, but the one-on-one thing, for as long as I can, I want it to be me, and then maybe I'll pass it down to Adriana if she wants it a little bit later. But so that's kind of what it's been based on.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. I mean, and so you just kind of keep it small until the girls are grown?
I think so. I mean, there's
still like a little bit of, you still get to do it.
Yes,
right?
I still get to do it, and it's based on when I can. I have a busy season, then I have a season in the summer, which tends to be not as busy. Teams start to ramp up in August, and then it gets busy with travel through judging and different things like that. But yeah, I've been able to work it around, our family life.
How often are you judging?
Well, this season I judged a lot. It felt like every other weekend for a while, which is
that like close or are you
no,
flying
it's flying.
Okay.
It's flying. And I always say the second I get on the plane, the second the agent will call with an audition for the girls.
Of course, yeah.
So now that the girls are older, they can handle a lot of that stuff on their own, and my husband's able to help. But I think I've just ramped up a lot of my traveling because the girls are older. I did it a lot when they were little. Could be anywhere from 10 to 15 events.
Oh, wow.
There's a lot of judges who judge like 40 events a season. It's wild. There's some judges who are gone every weekend. I just can't do that with the nature of the girls.
Well, yeah, exactly. But I mean, 10 or 15 still flying.
It's a lot.
It is a lot with what you have going on.
Yes.
With the billion other things you have going on. So what if, like, in the consulting part, what have you learned about creating boundaries for those parents that, that we were talking about that don't refuse to listen?
I think that the beauty about consulting is you do have a little bit of that one-on-one time. And because of that, they're invited into my life a little bit more, and they can see what I've done. And so instead of me having to preach it to them, they see that I've lived it, and I can point them to other teams who have done what I've done. And maybe that first year they didn't get top 10 at nationals, but that second year over time, then they consistently placed in finals every year. And then the years where the teams maybe haven't used me again, the results have not been there. So I've been able to kind of have results and track my teams and say case studies. Yeah. Yes, because sometimes you have to do checks and balances too to say, hey, is what I'm doing still relevant to today's dancer? And it absolutely is. Okay. The product that I've created, it does work. It works over time, but you have to work it. And you have to have a coach who's also invested in you and saying, hey, when I'm not here, when I'm personally not there, I'm going to do X, Y, and Z to make sure my dancers are. So those parents get it because they see me. And they are like, oh, my daughter's coming home tired. She's coming home doing the burpees you told her to do. And, the best are the dads.
Burpees.
Oh, my God. They're the best, though.
I mean, they're great for you, yeah.
They are. The best are the dads who, when they'll meet me the first time and they'll say, I literally thought you were going to be like 6 feet tall and like a lot bigger than you are because my child's intimidated by you. And I'm like, well, that's great. I don't intimidate from fear, but I demand excellence.
Right.
If you are paying for a service and you want to grow, then there is an expectation that you are going to at least meet me halfway.
Right.
And I am expecting when you come back the next week that you did X, Y, and Z. If not, then, we're going to talk about it.
Yeah. For like the functional movement stuff, I started doing like, I did yoga for a while, but I'm doing like animal flow mobility stuff. Do you know what that is?
All I think of is like bear crawls.
Like, yeah, that's an example. Bear crawls are like you sort of crab walks and you flip over and you like kick your leg out. Like stuff that you would actually need to use your joints for instead of just like
weight bearing. A lot of weight bearing.
I do like, regular weightlifting stuff. But once I added that in, like a lot of my soreness went away from my shoulders and stuff because it's
things you would do everyday life that you
exactly. So that was just really good. Has been good for me. So look it up. Maybe try it.
There we go. Yeah.
You've stayed in shape very well over the last several years.
Ebbs and flows, yes.
I mean, so you, still consider that a part of your daily routine?
Yes. And I think what's changed is before kids, I would go to the gym. That would be part of like the thing you would do. It's like you'd meet your friends at the gym. It was a little bit of social hour and then kids happened. So when we moved into our house, one of the things I told my husband, I was like, I just want a little small dance studio. Yeah. And so I got my pink walls, I have my mirrors, my ballet studio. Yeah. Now I have my bike down there and the weights because I didn't want myself to be making excuses. So
yeah, and there can't be.
There can't be. So sometimes I'm working out at 11 p.m. I have so many videos of the girls when they were little, like I'd have them like in the car seat. One was crawling around and I'm doing an exercise program and doing whatever. But I feel like it is important for me to represent fit. Yeah. And show dancers it's not about being skinny. It is not about a weight on a scale. It's about being fit and feeling confident. And if I can project that at different sizes, because I've gone from when I was cheering for the pros, I mean, yeah, I was a lot skinnier, you know, but I feel more fit now because I know I'm a lot stronger now because I know how to work out functionally for me and not based on getting to a certain size.
Right.
And so telling dancers you want to be strong so that you can achieve what you want to on the stage, that resonates much better with parents because they're like, that's what I've been trying to tell them. It's not about being skinny. It's not about this. And I'm like, no, we don't use skinny. We don't use those words. We use you want to be fit and you want to be strong and capable of doing what you need to do.
Yeah. And a lot of people don't think about that, especially you see these influencers and stuff like that are skinny and doing these weird movements and stuff, but they're like, could they do a handstand? Maybe not, you know, like the crazier stuff. You know, so like in breaking some barriers, what is it like, especially being in the DC area, being like a woman of color in the dance world? Were there negatives, pros, cons?
You know, it's interesting because I just got off Worlds. Like I said, I've been judging Dance Worlds for 16 years. And I was asked to speak this year to the room of judges. And looking around on the dance side, there were only 5 judges of color. On the cheer, there were a lot more. And I'm often asked about what it feels like to be a woman of color in the industry. And I will say it's challenging.
Okay.
I spoke a lot when I spoke to the judges about how important representation is in seeing yourself. And one of the black judges who I first met when I was in college, who taught at a university, before she came into my school, I've never come in contact with the black dance team coach. And when I saw her, the first thing that I did after practice was call my mom and said, I think I want to be a dance team coach.
Okay.
Before then, I
just didn't even consider it.
Didn't consider it because I didn't see myself represented. Right. Years later, I judged side by side with her. She's now one of my great friends. She's one of my mentors. And I told her during this talk, I said, it's because I saw you that I thought I could. And now, as a older and wiser dancer in the industry, I hope that I can do that for the younger generation. Yeah. Because there is a lack of diversity. And I think it's access. I think it is sometimes when you don't see yourself in higher places, in some place, you're like, well, should I even compete? Is this a space where I fit in? Right. So I keep showing up for many reasons because I love it, but also because I want to show my girls that, you know, your color should never be a barrier. Yeah. However, we have to be realistic in saying that it is a barrier oftentimes, and not because we want it to be, but just because access, opportunity, people telling you that you can. I spoke at a high school the other day at a theater group, and actually one of the actors asked me that. And it was a humbling experience because here she was at maybe 16 and said, how has it been being an actor raising 2 girls of color in the industry? How was that like for them? And when she asked me that, I said, it's different for them because they see a lot more of themselves. When I grew up as a child in the industry, the amount of jobs for little black girls, I mean, a couple a year. Like, I never saw myself on TV in a national ad. Right. And here my girls are, they're in a Disney commercial. Like, I think when I think about that, yes, we've made so much progress, but why did it take that many years for there to be a black little girl with Mickey ears being the face of Disney?
Yeah, good question.
Do you know what I mean? But so I'm so happy that they won't grow up with the same stigmas that I did. They can go to a store and see multicultural dolls. Right. I didn't. Or if they did, it was like the one black doll on clearance, and my mom made sure to grab that one. Now it's like, you know, there's so much more diversity, still not enough, but I'm hoping that each generation, because they see themselves, keeps showing up into more and more spaces. And it's like, of course I belong here. Right. You know? Right. But it is challenging.
Yeah.
It is challenging.
So, I mean, how has that like affected your mentality? You're just pretty fierce anyway, so it's just kind of like
you know me.
Yeah.
I'm
in
a
the room
break
now,
down the
so-
barriers. I also tend to be the one that my friends nudge to speak up.
Oh yeah.
It has just always been in me. They'll think it. Like, do you know how many people will like slide in my DMs now? Like when something controversial happens and they'll say like, I saw something you posted like on Facebook and that really resonated with me. Like, I can't believe you're so brave to speak about it. I'm like, I don't really feel it being that brave. I'm just speaking my truth.
Yeah.
And like,
compelled to.
if you like it, you like it. If you're not, keep scrolling kind of thing.
Yeah.
When people ask about barriers, it's tricky because I've never felt like a victim. I've never felt like my skin has held me back but you also have to think you've met my mama. Like my mama's 4'7", like fierce woman who will never let anything. She told me, if you want anything in life, go get it.
Yeah.
She's like, you might have to work harder. And she told me this. You might have to work harder than some of your white girlfriends. She told me that. She laid it out. My mom lays it out on the table. She goes, so what?
Right.
Work harder.
Yeah.
She goes, life isn't fair. I told my girls that from the second they conceptualize the word fair. It is not. It is never designed to be fair. You were dealt a deck of cards. There's some people who were born into wealth and will never have to work a day in your life. Are you going to sit there looking at them and be like, well, that's not fair? I mean, or are you going to be like, I was born with this deck of cards and I'm going to work the hell out of them?
Right. Exactly.
Do you know? I mean,
you don't want to be one of those super rich kids anyway, because you don't have any
little wealth, but
But to grow up in that like
No.
super kind of wealth, there's very few of those people that are determined, or
Yes.
it's their parents or grandparents that were the ones
Absolutely.
that were determined, that came from nothing oftentimes.
absolutely.
You'd rather be that person, because when you look at the end of your life, you're like, well, I did that. It's something to be proud of.
Yes.
If you just have mommy and daddy's trust fund, then now, again, yes, I would like it.
Yeah.
But I
Right.
anything that I've gotten for any sort of self-esteem in my life has been from something that I had to work hard for.
Absolutely.
know?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Some of the things that I faced that I didn't know I faced until you talk to people who aren't women of color is the question of, I remember when I first got the job of being the director for the Wizards, and the amount of times I was asked, how did you get that job? Okay. Now at first I'm not thinking anything of it because I'm like, okay, people asked, how'd you get that job? Now after I stepped down, 3 other girls took the job who were not people of color, and they were actually friends of mine. And I just was curious. And I was like, hey, when you told people, like, that you got the job, like, what'd they say? They're like, oh my gosh, congrats. Like, I knew you would be
wow.
great for that. And I went to my mom and she said, are you surprised? And I said, well, I don't know. Let me think about that. And I had to go back in my life, and I usually get the how. Like when I started homeschooling, I got a lot of, well, how are you going to do that? So I just asked my white girlfriends who also homeschooled, and I was like, hey, when people asked you, they're like, oh my gosh, that's so cool. Like, oh, that's great. And I'm like, I wonder why that is.
Yeah.
And so I'm always like a why thing. And so I would go to my mom and she was like, well, honey, and she'll say to me, she was like, you've always experienced that growing up. I just sheltered you from it. And I'm often asked that question. Like, there's almost a little bit of they're surprised at it.
Really?
Not a immediate, oh my gosh, I knew you could get that. It's like,
Is it certain types of people that you notice that do that?
well, nobody in my friend group, of course, because we wouldn't be friends.
Yeah.
But sometimes I think it can be generational.
Okay.
There's been so many, that's a whole nother podcast that we can talk about, of like experiencing the microaggressions of that I've experienced as a woman of color, especially with the girls, just little passive aggressive comments. Things that my mom told me early on. She was like, Wanda, you're always going to have to dress up no matter where you go. I learned that from her because it's the times my mom didn't dress up. They would either say, where's your mom? Or didn't take her seriously. So that's why you would always catch my mom in heels and suits and dressed up wherever she was going in order to be taken seriously. And I would say that to my white girlfriends, and they would show. I remember at preschool drop-off, they'd come in like pajamas, hair up. I'm coming like makeup on ready. And now one of my best friends, our kids are the same age, and we just had candid talks about that. And I was like, hey, do you ever like really think about like having to like look a certain way to present in order to be taken seriously? And she goes, no. My husband too. Never. And so having these real conversations doesn't mean that I'm playing the victim card. It just means that sometimes your experience and how you walk through life shapes your experiences. And so when I can speak up about those things, what it's helped in my group, which is very diverse, is it brings awareness and it also gets the conversation. We should be able to talk about these things.
Right.
And it should be able to, in a dance space or in a non-dance space, to say there are going to be some barriers as far as dance. And talk about that tight color. Growing up, I was in suntan, shiny tights that were not my skin color. I did it because there were no other options.
Right.
So when dance companies started coming out with actual different shades for Black dancers, do you know how wonderful that made a dancer of color feel? We felt like, oh, I don't have to stick out.
Right.
Because when you say skin color, they only had one skin color. So what does that say to all of the non-white dancers?
You're not normal. You don't
Right.
have normal skin.
That.
Yeah.
Or when they put Black dancers in bright blue eyeshadow. Think about it.
Yeah.
I was in bright blue eyeshadow in all my pictures growing up, and I'm like, this was the wrong color.
Yeah.
You know, or going to the store and they never having your shade of foundation. Now, we've gotten so much better. There's so much more diversity. There's so much in makeup and skincare and costuming. But that was not always the case. You know, so I'm constantly fighting for more representation in marketing, in making sure that, you know, your website promotes all of the ethnicities of your studio and not the blonde hair epitome that used to be when I grew up. That was the epitome of beauty. If you didn't have blonde hair and this skinny, then you weren't going to be the featured dancer.
Right.
You know,
Hopefully that has changed quite a bit.
It has, and it hasn't. If do you know what I mean? Like it takes people like me and people who look like me to keep showing up because there is a little bit of fatigue that sets in if you're a Black woman of color and you keep coming to events and the amount of us dwindle and dwindle. Sometimes I'm the only woman of color on the panel.
Like, speaking of access, like, are there any like nonprofits that do that sort of stuff?
There are.
City kids
Yes, and I'd be happy to like provide you with those. I don't have them offline, but there are. Sadly, a lot of those grants are being cut. That's a whole nother story. Yeah. But there are a lot of grants that just work with underprivileged or biopic children whose parents might not know where to go. Right. Like as a parent, you know, you need to know that there's all these options so that you're like, oh, there are opportunities for my child. So a lot of those are government funding and private funding. And I don't know where that's the wave of the future for that is.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting.
It's going to be
few years.
It's going to be interesting to see where that goes.
Yeah.
But yeah.
So getting into your vision for yourself.
Yes.
You said you want to be a public speaker at some point. Where do you see and doing what? You're talking about what?
That's interesting. Like when we first started talking about that, like, you know, I do a lot of visualizing and closing my eyes and seeing like, what kind of stage do I see myself on? And I feel like to start, it's an intimate one.
Okay.
Like, I don't know. I feel like it's those deep conversations that necessarily won't be on a big stage. I want to get to a big stage and have a big audience. But I think initially it's comfy, cozy, intimate. Yeah.
And what's the subject matter? Do you have that yet? I mean, there's so many things. Like there's motivational, and you could do stuff in dance, but you're already doing that. So like, is it just to like?
I think it's empowerment.
Moms and empowerment.
I think it's like it's people empowerment. Maybe it would be moms specific, or you know, I don't necessarily think I want to carve a very small niche and like being only dance moms or theater moms, but I think there is a lack of people being able to make individual choices for themselves and own it and feel good about it. Because it's the social media influence of like, you could wake up as a woman and feel like, you know what, I've lost 10 pounds. I've started this great job. My kids are thriving. The second you open up social media, you no longer feel those cells. Yeah. So it's thinking of ways, how can I help to build up women so that they always have that with them? Because in order for us to impact our kids, we have to be grounded. We have to kind of have our stuff together.
Right.
If not, we're always emptying from our cup, but we never have a full one. You know, a little bit of what I spoke to about the judges was kind of like 3 things that I always tell people. You know, you're capable, you're worthy, and you're enough. How many?
The enough part is what a lot of people struggle with. I know I did for a long time.
Struggle with. Well, how many times do people actually say to you, you know, Mike, I'm proud of you. What you're doing is making a difference. And not it being like, okay, yeah, someone's paying me to say that, or like making it being fluff, but we don't have a lot of that.
No.
And
like
we need
words
more
of
that.
affirmation, and people, it's like most people are starved for that because that's one of their love languages, and they don't get it.
So how can we expect women, I just say women because we usually are the default ones raising the next generation. If we're not getting it, how can we be expected to raise kids who get it and then can be those light bearers in their community? It's a trickle down effect. Like our society right now is at this, I feel like this tipping point because we're not doing that. All we're doing is toxic commenting, writing, hate, division. And so everybody's cup is empty.
Right.
So people with empty cups are going into social media and being like, okay, well, I'm feeling like crap. I'm going to make you feel crap. Yeah. Then I'm going to make my kids feel like crap. Then they're going to make their friends feel like crap. And it's a circle.
Yeah.
So I feel like there needs to be and it's not a self-help book. I've read enough of those. It's not that.
Yeah.
You know, I've listened to the podcast.
But there needs to be like true change within somebody.
Yes.
And that's like a deep dive that they have to do on their own. All you can really do is like encourage them to start that journey.
Yes.
Right? Because
they
there's
need to hear
a million
it
different books out there, but if you don't digest them,
that's
you
true.
don't apply them, it doesn't mean anything, you know?
It's almost like a community of people who are committed to doing it.
Okay.
And showing up in their spaces to do it. And it has to be imperfect people. It's people that you know. Yeah. So if I'm going on my social media and saying things that are positive and empowering, then someone else in the network is doing the same thing. And then they're actually able to speak to someone, I don't know, that they're in business with and saying it. I feel like it's a collective. It's a little bit of what my partner and I are doing of the Mama Collective. It's like when you get a group of like-minded people together, it feels small, but it's like a pebble. It's a ripple effect. Yeah. So it's getting people to buy into this community where you can feel those things.
Right. So you're starting a cult.
But the right kind of cult.
The right kind of cult, yeah. No, but it's kind of like a church or any sort of community.
It's a community.
Where you're all there for like the same purpose.
But shouldn't that be the purpose
try to build each other up.
Right.
It should be the purpose of everyone.
Life, right? Yeah. It's almost like I was thinking about, you know how everyone felt at the beginning of COVID?
Yeah, I was drunk.
Well, okay, well, yeah, coupling back on that. But I think back and before we knew life was really going to be shut down, it felt like this extended snow day. And I remember, do you know what I mean? Yeah. And I remember my friend, we were like doing wine happy hours. We were intentionally calling people. We were like, look, you got this. Like, I know you want to like murder your kids, but like and it was like people were reaching across the aisles and it was a community of like togetherness and empowering. Right. What happened? It's like something happened in all of us that it was like immediately gone. And I've been meditating on that, praying about that. The change in me, I will say, was a positive one and it remained positive. Okay. So I'm trying to figure out why is it that it remained positive in me?
And not others.
And how can I communicate that and try and pull that? I don't know. I haven't gotten to the bottom of that yet because my business downsized. So it's not like all of a sudden I had financial growth during this. Right. It's not like big changes happened in my marriage where all of a sudden we were like faltering and now we were this. Actually, things kind of got bad for a while. I was home with my kids all the time, but I came out a changed person.
Just more gratitude?
More gratitude. I stopped over scheduling my life. I started saying no to things that no longer...
Saying no is a big part of...
Huge.
Mental clarity.
And I cleared out... Now you know what I'm good at? The second somebody shows me that they're disingenuous, disloyal, and not for me, I am a quick... Done.
I think that for me that changed too, like late 30s, where it was like, we were like, for a little while when Jesse and I first got together, we were kind of like Captain Save-A-Ho, sort of, like, they're a really good person. Yes. And then like at some point after, like when it didn't work, and like, no, we can't change these people. Who do we think they are?
Yes.
So we've downsized our friend group quite significantly. And I mean, I still love those people, but I can only have so much negative toxic energy around me. And I wish you all the best, but I need people in my corner that I can rely on, even though I don't really ever need it. But I can't, when I do, when I come calling,
you know that person.
Yeah,
there.
Exactly. I mean, you're one of those people for sure. I mean, I don't come calling that often, but
if you did, you know, we would be there. Absolutely.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So like, what's like getting onto a lighter topic?
Yeah, I know, right?
What's next for you guys and for like the future of the business or the girls or you know?
I think I kind of touched on it with the Mama Collective a little bit. My partner and I, who I've talked about longevity of friendships, I've known her for, oh my gosh, 30 some years. And we have gone through every life stage together. And I say, as we're getting wiser, because no one's getting older, we've learned that we want to enjoy life.
Yeah.
Okay. And I think it's sad that you have to wait till you get older to realize that like time is like the most precious thing you have.
Right.
And we want to find a way we both enjoy dance. We both enjoy the arts. We both enjoy empowering. How can we make a bigger impact for the communities that we love, but without it sucking life from us? Do you know what I mean? Like, it's, we want to enjoy it. We want to travel. Like if you talk about vision casting, I would love for the Mama Collective to be this thing that we travel to events.
Okay.
And we are going from city to city, and it's not something that's a weekly thing, but it's like, hey, we're going to go speak here to a group of women who are maybe in this corporation, or next week we're going to go to speak here. Next time we're going to be an event here. Like I see it being very.
Well, if you do a podcast, and it gets enough traction, you could do like a podcast tour that's like a conference along with it.
See, now you're talking.
Yeah.
And part of us, you're talking to two perfectionists. That's the problem. Two perfectionists who've built very successful businesses and kiddos. So now we're like, all the eggs have to be in the line before us to like crack one. And I'm like, we just need to do it.
Yeah.
We just need to do it.
Well, at least starting with the podcast. I mean,
yes.
I can tell you everything that I do here.
Yeah.
You could be up and running in a week or two.
And just do it.
Yeah. Just get started. That's the hardest part. Like,
I know.
I've had multiple like artists on here and like a lot of people that started their own business, and like that's the main like theme is like people that overthink stuff and they just get started. Like I had a painter on and he started painting 3 hours a day when he had extra time when his old job. He lost his job and now all he does is paint. But his encouragement was like, just do it. If you think you're creative, then just do it.
Just do it.
So there's no like buy the stuff. So Jessie had me like, I wanted to paint the walls and I painted when she was gone one weekend and she's like, I guess you're doing it now.
Yeah,
I mean, the walls are black or charcoal gray, so like that was my motivation.
That was your motivation.
Like, I started buying stuff and I was like setting me on the course to do it.
You just kind of set yourself up. Yeah.
So, I mean, that's the first.
That's the first step.
Because and you need to get the reps. I mean, you're great at this. So,
right.
But get enough where you're getting some content and you're getting some notoriety or whatever. And then you start selling your other services on the podcast.
See, that's it. That's when you start. You do the podcast first and then you sell it while you're there.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's kind of what I'm doing. Like, I want to promote, my friends and people I know, but I'm promoting myself too.
You are, yeah.
Like
absolutely.
If people want to buy from people they, like, and hopefully they do.
And see, that's the thing. And I think we are two likable people and we build, and that's why, you were saying the video thing. We have to do the video because it's a different, once you see us and there's, we're dynamic together and you see facial things, it just makes it makes us different.
Right.
There's some other people who are doing what we do in similar markets, but they're not video.
Right.
And so if we can be video, I think that could
just beat them to the chase.
Yeah.
Because I don't listen to any podcasts.
So funny.
I watch podcasts.
And we're listeners to podcasts. So that's why in our head, we're thinking people want to drive and listen, but we need to frame it so like this is something you want to watch.
Well, if someone is scrolling on TikTok or Instagram Reels or whatever, they're not scrolling audio. They're scrolling video. So this is like your it's free marketing if you just video it. You can still release the audio as well if people want to digest it that way. But like, I'm just putting this on YouTube and Spotify because I don't think anyone else really cares about audio.
Ah, okay.
So I get like from these longer, like this will be, an hour and a half or so.
Yeah.
I'll get 20 clips from it.
Ah, okay.
So I use those clips just be constantly putting stuff out. So if you guys do, you'll easily be able to go for 30 to 60 minutes on a particular topic.
Right.
And then you have your content.
Ah, and then you're just splicing that up and then you're just releasing different pieces of it.
Yeah. And the short form promotes the long form. And
okay.
But you don't have to do any extra work of like, okay, we need to film about this 15 seconds about this, or you're just kind of free flowing and then you cut out the parts that are good.
Ah.
Yeah.
So you've always been good at this stuff. You've always been like marketing, promoting. That's your thing.
Yeah.
You've always been good at it.
Like the pictures we took with the Wizards girl.
I remember that. Yes. Yes.
That was early on in our, that was probably 2006, maybe.
Gosh.
Maybe.
Babies we were.
Yeah. I mean, speaking of working out, I was like 210 at that point.
That's wild to me.
180 now.
I know. It's wild. You've definitely lost a person. Yes.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
So is there anything else you want to cover before we wrap up?
I don't know. I think we covered.
Yeah, I think it's great.
Yeah.
Okay, great. So how can people find you, and is the Mama Collective a thing?
Yeah, so the Mama Collective.co, I think, or the Mama Collective.
I'll put it in the
description. You'll put it in there, yes. And then the Wanda Weirs is our family Instagram, and then the Weir Sisters were on Instagram. Premierdance.co was on Instagram. Yeah.
Sweet.
If you find one, you can click and find the others. That's kind of how we set it up. You just kind of click the hyperlinks.
Awesome,
so
great.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for coming on today.
Yes, thank you for having me.
Take care.